Have you ever stared at your phone while it rings, watching the name flash on the screen, completely paralyzed until it finally stops? You do not dislike the person calling. You might even love them, but the sudden demand for a real-time conversation feels completely overwhelming. And the moment the missed call notification appears, you immediately feel a wave of relief followed by a quiet sense of guilt. You quickly type back a text message instead saying you are busy right now, but you would love to chat via text. Most people call this phone anxiety or assume you are just being antisocial, but the psychology behind this preference is much deeper. We live in a world where constant accessibility is expected. Anyone can reach into your pocket and demand your immediate attention. For some people, an unexpected phone call is just a normal part of the day, but for others it feels like an ambush. When you express a preference for texting, society is quick to judge you. They say you are hiding or losing touch with real communication. Older generations might assume that you simply lack social skills or that you do not value the intimacy of hearing another person's voice. But if you look closely at what is happening internally, it has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of care or social competence. It has everything to do with how your nervous system processes unpredictable social demands and the pacing of communication. And for a deeply wired, highly sensitive person, the ability to process information before responding is a fundamental psychological need. When that need is threatened by a sudden phone call, your nervous system does not politely adapt. It goes into a minor fight-or-flight state. You are not rejecting the person on the other end of the line. You are rejecting the sudden, unscripted intrusion into your mental space. Your brain is sending an urgent signal that your current emotional boundary is being breached, and texting is the safest way to rebuild it. In psychology, researchers use terms like telephobia or communication anxiety to describe this specific apprehension toward making or receiving phone calls. Studies show that texting allows for asynchronous communication. This means you have total control over the timing, pace, and rhythm of the conversation. When you text, you have the luxury of pausing. You can read the message, process your emotional reaction, and carefully formulate your response. This creates what psychologists call a hyperpersonal communication environment, where you can actually express yourself more clearly and authentically than in person. On a phone call, that buffer completely disappears. You are required to perform in real time, instantly interpreting the other person's tone and intent. Because phone calls lack the nonverbal cues of face-to-face interaction, your brain has to work twice as hard to fill in the missing context. Every slight pause or change in pitch can be misinterpreted as disapproval or boredom, which sends an anxious mind into complete overdrive. For those with an introverted or highly sensitive baseline, this rapid-fire processing is not just mildly annoying, it is deeply, fundamentally exhausting. They are navigating a communication medium that strips away their natural strengths like deep reflection and forces them into rapid, shallow reactions. And if they feel they cannot perform perfectly in that moment, the internal alarm sounds, making them avoid the interaction altogether. You can actually feel this communication anxiety in your body the exact second you hear the unexpected ringtone shatter your quiet environment. It starts as a sudden drop in your stomach. Your heart rate noticeably spikes. You might actually stop breathing for a few seconds. The energy in your body completely shifts. A peaceful afternoon suddenly feels like an impending test that you did not study for. Imagine the physical sensation of walking alone in a quiet forest, and suddenly someone jumps out from behind a tree and demands answers. Your immediate instinct is not to engage in a thoughtful dialogue. Your instinct is to retreat and find a safe, quiet place. That is exactly what an unannounced phone call feels like to a highly tuned nervous system. It is an emotional jump scare. In that split second, the content of what they want to talk about becomes completely irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the intrusion. You could actually have great news to share with them, but because the interaction is forced right now, you physically cannot engage comfortably. This creates an incredibly frustrating paradox. You find yourself feeling isolated and lonely, yet actively ignoring the people trying to reach you. The need for predictable pacing becomes so loud that it drowns out your desire for connection, leaving you misunderstood and emotionally drained. This brings us to the crucial shadow side of this psychological wiring. What happens when this preference for texting starts working against you? Texting is a powerful tool for maintaining boundaries, but when it becomes your only acceptable form of communication, the tool becomes a crutch. You might find yourself avoiding necessary difficult conversations purely because they require the nuance and immediate empathy of a voice call. You delay reaching out for professional opportunities or cancel important appointments because the very thought of dialing the number feels completely paralyzing. You start experiencing misunderstandings in your relationships. The tone of a text is easily misinterpreted, leading to conflicts that a 2-minute call could solve. This is when telephobia stops protecting your mental energy and actually starts limiting your life. You are no longer choosing how to communicate. If you automatically reject every phone call, you are allowing fear to dictate your social interactions and professional growth. True communication freedom is not just avoiding the medium that makes you anxious. True freedom is the ability to use the right tool for the job. When you refuse to pick up the phone during a genuine crisis, you are essentially sacrificing deep connection for the illusion of control. The goal is not to force yourself to love phone calls. The goal is to build enough tolerance so that the ringtone no longer controls you. So how do you navigate a world that still relies on voice calls when your brain is wired to instantly prefer the safety of text? It starts with cognitive restructuring. When the phone rings, your brain screams, "Danger." You need to consciously translate that into just a conversation. Pause the automatic reaction for just 3 seconds. Acknowledge the physical feeling of anxiety and remind yourself that you are safe. You can practice gradual exposure. Start by scheduling short, low-stakes phone calls with people you deeply trust and feel completely comfortable with. You also need to change how you communicate your boundaries. Stop feeling guilty for preferring text, but be proactive about setting expectations. Instead of ignoring the call, send a quick message saying, "I see you called. I am better over text right now. What is up?" For the people in your life, you might need to explain this wiring to them. Ask them to text you before they call. A simple shift from an unexpected ambush to a scheduled 5-minute chat changes everything for an anxious, highly sensitive nervous system. When the element of surprise is removed, the defensive wall instantly dissolves. The anxiety vanishes and genuine vocal connection becomes possible again. You do not need to be accessible 24 hours a day. You just need a system that allows you to connect on your own terms. Maybe you are not antisocial. Maybe you are not cold distant or losing your ability to communicate with the real world. Maybe your nervous system simply places an incredibly high value on thoughtful, deliberate communication rather than rushed real-time reactions. This intense drive for asynchronous connection is actually a profound strength. It makes you a careful listener and a deeply intentional communicator. You are the kind of person who wants to give someone your best, most considered response rather than whatever pops into your head first. You can protect your energetic boundaries fiercely while still recognizing when a loved one genuinely needs to hear the warmth of your voice. Both can be completely true. You can be deeply wired for the text-based communication and still choose to answer the call when it truly matters. If you recognize this phone anxiety in yourself, or if you love someone who has this reaction, send this video to them. Let them know that you understand their need for a slower pace and that you will start texting before you call them. Does your heart rate spike when your phone rings unexpectedly? Let us know exactly how it feels in the comments below. We are building a community for people who are wired differently. If this felt like looking in a mirror, subscribe and